to make this point before I go on to say what I'm about to say. And I finished last night's video by saying this, but not everybody watches the whole video. I get that. I think the top 4 is still on. There were a couple of comments afterwards in the live chat of the review that were saying, that's it, it's all over now, we'll finish mid-table. I don't subscribe to that. I don't agree to that at all. Look, I think it was a really, really bad result. I think there are a lot of mitigating circumstances for it. I mean, Gio said in the review afterwards he wouldn't accept tiredness as an excuse. It was an excuse because we were tired. I think where I was just mitigate that slightly is by saying we should never have been in that position. The board and David Moyes should have dealt with that. They should have seen it coming, and we shouldn't have been tired. We should have had players in. We should have a bigger squad. But that being said, the players were knackered, right? So that's that. But I think the top 4 is on. But one of the bigger problems that we have, that David Moyes has for the players being tired, once you put that fixture congestion away and the fact that maybe... I'm glad West Ham didn't play the system, by the way. I'm really glad that we didn't do what Newcastle had done, for instance, and pretended to not be able to field a 25-man squad. Fair play to Leeds for doing that with all those teenagers on the bench as well. But where David Moyes doesn't help himself is this situation that we have with Alex Kral, and it feeds into a bigger conversation surrounding David Moyes. And with the players that he has a reluctance to use. David Moyes doesn't look at that bench and see players that he's willing to bring on. And I think sometimes David Moyes looks at players, and even players that he has brought in, or that have been brought in under his watch, if you like, and doesn't use them. Areola's another case in point. And I wonder what the hell is going on, really. Now, I said this from the outset with Alex Kral. I wasn't entirely sure that it was David Moyes that wanted to bring him in. I wasn't entirely sure that David Moyes wanted to use him. And I said very, very early, can't remember the video, but I said very early, I don't think he's staying. And I was quite sure that if there was an obligation to buy or an option to buy, it would have been triggered with a certain amount of appearances. And that's why I think that we haven't used Alex Kral. But what's the point? I mean, actually, what is the point, if that's it? As I understand it, Kral is available for about 12 million, something like that. I'm not suggesting that Alex Kral is good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know. My issue is with David Moyes bringing in a player or having a player on his bench that he won't use. Because there was something really frustrating about Vlasic, who is another player that Moyes has brought in, who, let's be fair, he's been a little bit reluctant to use, albeit somewhat differently. We've bought him, he's our player. It's in Moyes' interest to get Vlasic going and get some good games. And look, I think Vlasic had a bad game in that game. Let's be fair, it was only the previous game against Leeds when he was absolutely on fire, wasn't he? So, it's not that, but there was a reluctance to use him. When Benrahma came in initially, there was a reluctance to use him. And a lot of people say, well, this is David Moyes' way. This is what David Moyes does. Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. When Zuma came in, bang, straight in the team. He absolutely loved him. You know, you could hear the way he would speak about him glowingly. When Souček came in, even though Souček only came in on loan, bang, he was straight in the team. There was something about him. He liked what he saw. Maybe he was more integral in him coming over. The same, obviously, with Jesse Lingard. There's no waiting to acclimatise. In fact, you could probably say with Jesse Lingard, he had more excuse than most to give him a bit of time. He'd not really been featuring for Man U at all. You know, let him get his fitness up, all the rest of it. No, he liked him. He trusted him. More importantly, he wanted him in the team. And I look at some of these players and I just think this is doing us no good at all. And it's vitally important that David Moyes has players in the team who he wants to use. And more importantly, has players on the bench that he's going to want to look at that bench and think, I want this player, I want him to come on. Because when Vlasic went off, sorry, this is the frustrating thing, I digressed a bit. Vlasic went off, and I agree, he sort of something had to be done. To see Masuaku come on was really disappointing. Now, let's just get the little disclaimer bit out of the way, really, in terms of Masuaku. He set up a goal. Was it in the Norwich game? I think it was in the Norwich game. He set up a goal. Great. And obviously scored that goal against Chelsea. And so it's. I think if David Moyes was to counter-argue it, David Moyes can turn around and say, well, hold on a second, I bring this guy on and he impacts the game. I think we all know the reality of it is a little different. Before I go on any further about Arthur Masuaku, this video is sponsored by the OneFootball app. You can download the OneFootball app by clicking the link below, literally written in text under the screen. Why should you download the OneFootball app? Well, firstly, it's free. And secondly, it can put all your West Ham news together in one place for you, be it results like this nasty one, injury news, find out when Kurt Zouma is coming back, and transfer gossip and tittle-tattle. So hopefully you can find out in the next couple of weeks of transfer window exactly who West Ham are looking to sign. You can even use the QR code up there. That's the OneFootball app. Use the link below. Masuaku is a frustrating player when he comes onto the pitch, and he gives the ball away so much. I don't detect that sort of urgency from him. And he just doesn't look like part of David Moyes' plans. Yesterday I spoke about the centre-halves. It's really important that David Moyes has his centre-halves. Diop wasn't his choice, didn't buy Diop, and you can see it. Let him get his centre-half in. Well, he didn't. David Moyes would never buy Masuaku and Yarmolenko. You know this. If we went out and scouted some players now, you know Yarmolenko and Masuaku wouldn't be them. Yet he uses them off the bench. He feels he has to use them off the bench. There's a paucity of options, and I find it incredibly frustrating that we seem to have all these players around us who David Moyes doesn't want to use or has a reluctance to use. Now, I sort of get it. With Masuaku and Yarmolenko, they were already at the club. They weren't brought in under David Moyes. I think if he had an offer for either of them, they'd been gone. He's only got 6 months left, Yarmolenko. I'd be really surprised if he went this window. If he does and we can offset a little bit of the wages, great. But it's the same way that Jack Wilshere went and left. It wasn't David Moyes' business. David Moyes had no interest in that. I get it. I understand it. Even Haller, I understand. People often mention, I'll bring Haller back. Do you not remember Haller under David Moyes? He does not work in this system. He would not work in this system. And yes, we could probably look at David Moyes and think, well, why isn't David Moyes more adaptable? Well, forget it. We don't have it. What we got is David Moyes. And David Moyes, by the way, fantastic manager. And we ain't going to get a better manager than David Moyes. Pep Guardiola's not taking over West Ham anytime soon. So I think we have got to really work around how David Moyes wants to play. So it's going to take a while to get those players that were bought out the team, out the squad. And I understand why he might have a reluctance to use them, but use them he does. What I don't understand is the Alex Kral situation. I really don't. That game was crying out for somebody like that who could get a foothold in midfield and win a few tackles. Declan Rice was trying everything. Every time Declan Rice tried to disappear upfield to help us attack, it left a hole at the back. I've got nothing against Lanzini. I think Lanzini should be in the team every week. I really do. I think he should be our number 10. Just not sure at the moment he should be playing alongside Declan Rice. Central midfield. Funny enough, when Declan Rice was out last season, I thought Lanzini worked really well alongside Souček, because Souček will just sit. I thought that one works a little bit better than Lanzini and Rice, so to speak. But I don't get it. I also don't get the Areola thing. I really don't get the Areola thing at all. Again, I said it at the same time, and I said about Kral, I just suspected. I don't think we're getting Kral, and I don't think we're getting Areola. And I'm a little bit... I understand the reasoning for doing it. I've told all the reasoning before why I think we won't do the Areola deal. Too many times to repeat it again. But I'm a little bit disappointed because every time I see Areola play, I think he gives us confidence, and I really like the way he distributes the ball from the back. I don't want to say that that Areola is a better player than Fabianski. So Fabianski has had some good games. I don't think there's been much between them this season. I really don't. But I think we're a better team when Areola's in the side. Does that make sense? Saves and stuff like that, it's the same. But I do think the calmness, the distribution, the way he sort of speeds up the counter-attack, I think Areola being a goal helps the team. Particularly in terms of us going forward and attacking. In terms of what a goalkeeper's meant to do, which is a goalkeeper's there as your safety net. Literally, he is your security guard, isn't he? He's there to stop nasty things happening. The goalkeeper. In those terms, I think there's anything between them. Fabianski, they both, and Areola, they both rescued us and both more than capable of rescuing a nasty situation. But actually, in terms of getting the ball going up the other end of the pitch, Areola's a better player. But again, he doesn't want to use him. And that's why it's really important in this transfer window that whoever we do decide to bring in, Moyes has got to use them, he's got to want to use them. It's just no point in having players sat idle on the bench who are not going to help us. And there's even less a point when you look at when we're knackered, and clearly we've had, 3 games in 8 days or whatever it might be, that when you need fresh legs, and you've got fresh legs on the bench, David Moyes just not going to use them. Not good enough at all. I tell you, I just don't want to see it anymore. I want us to do something this window, and I do not want to see us having a situation where basically the answer to our problems turns out to be Masuaku and Yarmolenko.